Hi, everybody, and welcome back to the Next Generation Carriers. I'm Chris Sampieri from NALC Branch 18, and I'm also the Legislative Political Director. Today, I'm joined by my co-host Margot O'Neill from the NALC Branch 352 in Iowa, and President Greg Salmon. And all the names I messed up, huh? President Greg Samoluk, President 334. We're leaving that in. Today's episode is a little bit different from our usual shows because this is the first time we're interviewing a candidate running for Congress. Now, before you say anything, yes, we always hear people say we should keep, politics out of our union. But the reality is politics has never stayed out of the Postal Service. As union members, as city letter carriers, and as workers in general, we either turn on to politics or politics will turn on to us. Since the 1970 postal strike, the leadership of the Postal Service has been determined through a political process. The president nominates members of the Postal Board's Board of Governors, the Senate confirms them, and those governors select the Postmaster General. That leadership ultimately helps determine the direction of the Postal Service, which includes decisions that affect our wages, benefits, and working conditions. In other words, politics directly affects our lives as letter carriers. Meanwhile, in Congress, there are several pieces of legislation supported by our union that could significantly improve retirement security, our safety on the job, and the long-term future of the public postal service. Our union does important work through the Letter Carrier Political Fund, but if we're serious about defending our jobs and strengthening the Postal Service, we have to do more than just donate a few dollars and send a letter to Congress. We also need to educate ourselves and our fellow union members about the legislation and policies that affect postal workers, along with broader issues like healthcare, housing, and the growing inequality facing working people across this country. So today we're starting something new. We hope this will be the first of many conversations with elected officials and candidates for office. And we want to be clear about something. We don't care if you're a Republican, Democrat, Socialist, or Libertarian. What we care about is whether you stand with the city letter carrier and whether you believe the United States Postal Service should remain a strong public service for the American people. Today, we're joined by one of our first guests who is running for Congress in Massachusetts' 1st District, Jason Poulos. Jason, how bad did I butcher your name after you told me three times?
That was perfect. Thanks, Chris.
Oh! All right.
Good job, Chris.
All right. That I quit there. I'm doing great. All right. Thank you. So, Jason, welcome to the show. And for listeners, this conversation will probably run about an hour. We've got a lot of issues to cover, but we're also happy to let it conversation flow. My first question, before we get into policy, we wanted to start with how this conversation began. You actually reached out to our co-host, Greg, whose name I will not say again, when his union local was organizing a rally. What made you interested in connecting with letter carriers and supporting the rally?
So my name is Jason Poulos. I'm running for Congress in the 4th Congressional District. So I found out about the NALC through, they were doing Save Our Post Office from Mismanagement events, and there was a few in the district. There was one in Fall River, there was one in Taunton, and then Greg was running one in Framingham, which I actually wasn't aware of until after the fact, and I saw his post on Threads, which is a Instagram type of microblogging service. And so I was interested because, I'm interested in protecting letter carriers because they're the backbone of American communities. And the Postal Service is, a constitutionally mandated public service. Is not just a business to be privatized or automated away like UPS is doing. And protecting postal workers is also a part of a broader fight against corporate capture of public institutions that are happening right now in this country. And so I was really, glad to connect with Greg online and glad to be here talking with you guys.
Awesome. Great. That sounds awesome. So my next question is this. You are running in Congress. You're running against Congressman Jake Auchincloss in Massachusetts' 4th District. That district includes thousands of letter carriers and postal workers. It covers members from several NALC branches like Branch 34, my branch, Branch 18, Branch 12, and Branch 51, representing thousands of active letter carriers working in the district, along with many more who live there even if they deliver mail somewhere else. What made you decide to run for Congress and challenge the current representative?
Yes. So I'm not a politician. I've never run for office before. I'm actually an academic researcher. I did a PhD at UC Berkeley, where I was actually part of the UAW Local 2865 as a
Nice.
graduate instructor. Um, Before that, I worked at Harvard University, where I was part of the Harvard Union of Clerical and Technical Workers. Um, so my platform is built on economic security for working people, including Medicare for all, universal basic income. Postal banking is part of the platform, as is affordable housing. Um, why I'm running is not many people in Congress are talking about the threat of artificial intelligence related job displacement. And it's something that I think about a lot because I'm a artificial intelligence and policy researcher. So I'm always thinking about the effects of AI on the economy and society. Um, it's estimated about 50,000 layoffs occurred in 2025, and it's projected that about 7% of the entire workforce will be displaced by AI over the next decade. And so we need like big universal programs to counter these negative employment effects of AI. And the main one for me is Medicare for all, and we need to permanently decouple health insurance from employment. And it's estimated that Medicare for All would save the country about $450 billion in healthcare spending each year, and it would save about 67,000 lives per year. Universal basic income is important because if someone gets laid off unexpectedly, they would have an extra safety net to fall back on. And there's existing proposals in Congress. One is called the Boost Act, which would provide about $250 a month to every adult in the country. And this could be paid for by taxing corporate automation. So if a company decides to automate, they get a tax imposed on them, and that tax could then be paid towards UBI. And finally, and I think most importantly for this conversation, workers should have a seat at the table when a company decides to automate jobs. And an example of this would be the nurses' strike that was happening in New York City over the summer. And one of the main complaints from the nurses is that the corporate hospitals that they were working for were automating parts of their jobs without discussion. And so, for instance, when a patient comes into a clinic, there's an intake process that's usually done manually by a nurse or a healthcare staff. And that process was slowly being automated away by the use of chatbots. Um, you can see other types of deployment of AI in the healthcare sector, like diagnosing illnesses, for instance. But anyway, so workers should have a seat at the table, and we should be focused on passing the PRO Act in Congress to strengthen collective bargaining rights. And just finally, a big part of my platform is getting big money out of politics. And so, in order to do this, we really have to overturn the disastrous Citizens United decision, Supreme Court decision, which opened the floodgates to unlimited corporate and dark money funding in elections. And so there's a Citizens Over Corporations amendment in the Congress right now. The incumbent has not co-sponsored that amendment to overturn Citizens United. I would do that on day one. And lastly, I've signed the Unrig Washington campaign pledge, which means I would not accept corporate PAC money. I would vote to ban congressional stock trading, and I would also vote to end dark money in politics.
All right. Thank you. That is great.
Can I just interrupt real quick?
Sure, please.
For those of you who don't know, Jason, you probably know, you just hit on everything that my two co-hosts, they were nodding their head. I've never seen both of them nod their head like that. That is like the dream of all. I think Margot's on the first flight to campaign for you next week. And Chris is currently packing up a bag to head to the campaign trail. But that was that was a hell of a platform. But I couldn't agree more with everything you just said.
Yep. All right. And I just want to make a note to our listeners because this is nationwide our thing here. But, even if you don't work in or live in this district, which is the Massachusetts 4th. This legislation affects all of us, even in the Puerto Rico and the islands, you know, and Guam. Like, this is something we need everybody on board in Congress, all 535 people. We need them on board supporting this. So, you know, this is why it's important, because if you know, this person, whoever it is, they're going to be voting on your life. This is your livelihood. It's very important. So pay attention, please. But anyway, so this segment is about the legislation. These are the big four we always have coming up. This is when I talk about a lot of my union meeting. I always make my members sign petitions to put pressure on certain people in our district, like the 4th. Greg, you want to talk about HR
Yeah.
70 a little bit?
So just to get into the post office political issues. So HR 70 was the anti-privatization resolution passed in the House. It affirms the post office should remain an independent public institution, not be privatized. Congressman Stephen Lynch, who represents many of Branch 18 members, actually introduced the resolution and is actually currently 4 for 4 and all for NALC major priorities. Just first, would you support, if you were in Congress, would you support HR 70 anti-privatization?
Yes, definitely. And just to give a little like context of why I think it's important, about 93% of bank branch closures in since 2008 were in lower income neighborhoods, and the post office hasn't abandoned these communities. There's about 30,000 retail locations nationwide, and so it's important to resist this push for privatization, which is also occurring on a broader scale. So the same forces that want to privatize the Postal Service also want to privatize Social Security, Medicare, and public schools.
Sure. So one of the issues that Chris and I especially had locally with this is your opponent or the incumbent. He eventually co-sponsored it. Co-sponsored it basically right to the point where it was going to pass Chris, what's the number, 218?
Yep, 218 is the majority.
218.
He was like 214. He
Yeah,
was very much last.
Yeah, it seemed to get on late. One of the problems we have is, like, you know, obviously we're not always going to be priority one, but like, why wouldn't you just jump on that right away? What takes so long? You know, it's stuff like that where I think the everyday letter carrier, like, we have a political fund, we donate, we see where our money goes. It's like, jump on these bills, support us right away. What takes so long? And I think that's a problem a lot of us have with some of these people in Congress right now. Is why wouldn't you jump on that? It makes sense, right? But just to touch on something you said about, we're gonna obviously, I think we'll get to postal banking, but just in terms of the rural areas of this country, I was listening to a interview with I think it's Mondani's chief of staff or someone that works for Mondani. Real quick, he brought up he started off working for a candidate down in North Carolina, and out of the blue, he just brought up postal banking, and he's like, what the post office could do for some of these really rural communities where you could use the post office and how much they just rely on the post office in these parts of the country. And it's really sad to see when if it does get privatized and you see these big corporations take over. They don't care about the little person out in rural America as much as they might vote in a different direction. They don't care about them. And that's why keeping the post office public is so important to many of us and most of the country at that point, you know.
Margo, you want to get the next one?
Yeah. So another bill that like the NALC broadly is concerned about is HR 1065, which is the Protect Our Letter Carriers Act. So, like, for example, many carriers are deeply concerned about rising robberies and assaults, like particularly since COVID, the rate of carriers being robbed, being attacked, for the arrow keys, which are the keys that we use to get into like mailboxes and get into apartment buildings and certain stuff. People get robbed at gunpoint. And for example, this actually happened in Des Moines. Like, Des Moines is not the crime capital of any, like, it's a relatively small city. And even so, like, there was a robbery, I think a couple years ago, where the I don't remember if they ever caught the guy. I think that he ran away, but like, I mean, it's even happening here, is what I'm trying to say. So basically, HR 1065 aims to address those attacks and strengthen federal like enforcement of these laws. So, would you support this legislation, and what more should Congress be doing to protect carriers?
Yeah, I definitely support it. So the letter carriers, they face real dangers, including assault and robbery. And my understanding of this bill is that it facilitates certain security measures, such as GPS tracking of arrow keys and more safety protocols and coordination with law enforcement. And so, worker safety is non-negotiable in any workplace, whether it's postal workers or warehouse workers or any frontline employee. And the corporations tend to cut corners in order to boost profits, but I think it's important that public institutions like the U.S. Post Office should set a higher standard. And then you asked about what else can be done, and I think fully funding OSHA and more aggressive enforcement of workplace safety rules, I think, in addition to this bill.
Yeah, and the workplace safety is a really, really big one that's kind of additional that people are pushing forward, particularly like heat training and falsification of heat training records. Like, for example, I know in Eugene Gates is the name that rings in the minds of many letter carriers. He's somebody who passed away, was getting ready for retirement, and passed away, I think, a couple years ago due to heat stress. And he had been sort of they had like disciplined for him for some nonsense reason, like that he wasn't going fast enough in the heat. So definitely the OSHA, the heat safety stuff, that's all really important to us too. So
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah. And also, I mean, the robberies, I mean, they're happening here. Like I said, I know Greg and I talk about this, but robberies are coming pretty common because word on the street is that, and I always get nervous when the news talks about this, but they're like, you could get an arrow key in you could get $4,000, and they're showing pictures of the arrow keys, and it's like, should the media? I don't think they're helping by saying, "Hey, everyone, there's a $4,000 bill on your mailman." But like, I mean, for us personally, like, there's always, we live in an era of like DoorDash, Uber drivers, and everything, and I know my neighborhoods and I know my routes, but if there's somebody walking around and I don't know them, I'm getting nervous now because I don't know if this guy's showing up. Is he going to rob me? Like, this is something that is deeply on our minds. And people. I mean, we had someone murdered in Chicago for one of it's that's the whole thing. And Congress has the funding to do this, and that's why. And only as of like a couple of weeks ago, did your opponent actually endorse it, which took a lot of petitioning from the fine people of Branch 18 to get that happening. Shameless plug. But all right, the next one, which is when it does affect me too, and anyone else who's listening here, is HR 1522, the Federal Retirement Fairness Act. So there's a status. Greg, were you hired to career right off the jump?
Yes.
Okay. You know what, Greg? Good for you.
I'll see you guys later.
Okay, you can show yourself out the door. All right, but for Margaret, you were CCA, right?
for 2 years, yep.
Thank God. Okay, good. For people like me and Margot, not Greg, we had it's called non-career time, which means that when you worked, you got a low wage, no benefits, and every year you'd have to basically they'd lay you off for 1 year, and maybe they hire you back, maybe they don't. I did 3.5 years of it, and that time is not credited towards your retirement. So when I'm in my 60s, I'm going to have to work another 3.5 years to get to my retirement because of it. So what HR 1522 would do was that anyone who was a CCA, before me, we had a thing called transitional employees. And before that, I know Capone, not Greg, who's not here today, was a casual, which was, it was like a day labor almost.
Yeah, summer, winter, hell, I did that. You did a 90-day tour.
Greg, you're back in the chat.
Yes.
Okay, all right, Greg. All right, Greg.
Those were about as CCA was bad, a casual was worse. You were just used and abused for 90 days, and they'd say, "See ya."
Yeah, that was it. So for all of us, and that is thousands of us who went through that, HR 52 would give that time toward like we have military buyback, which is we could buy back that time towards our retirement. So good old Chris can not be 68 years old delivering mail out of a mail truck, which would be great because I'm in my 30s. But so that time that would count. Do you support HR 1522?
Definitely. And as you said, a lot of postal workers start as temporary or non-career employees, and they deserve the credit for that service. And it's a matter of a basic fairness. If you did the work, that work should count towards your retirement. And I would just situate it in a broader, we need to strengthen our retirement security in the large scale. So federal workers shouldn't have to fight for the retirement they've earned. And and you guys turned me on to this particular act. I'm also a proponent of expanding Social Security benefits by $2,400 a year by eliminating the billionaire payroll tax loophole. And so the way that Social Security is set up, income over $176,000 is currently exempt.
Raise the cap. Yep. Oh yeah. All right. Ooh, all right. Perfect. Oh man, all right, this is going well. All right, awesome. Greg, you got the next one.
So the next one, the most recent one, is HR 491. It's the Equal COLA Act. Federal retirees under FERS systems receive a reduced cost of living adjustment compared to the older, I'll just say, civil service system. That means when inflation rises, many retired postal workers lose purchasing power. The bill would ensure retirees receive full inflation protection so the retirement benefits keep pace with the cost of living. I think I can answer for you that you would definitely support that. Not a lot of people.
I don't know, Greg. Don't maybe he whiffs on this one, but because I know someone who's in the 4th district who isn't sponsoring HR 491, who will go unnamed. I don't see their name on anything. So maybe.
So I guess the question is, would you support that?
So the incumbent is not a co-sponsor on this, which is interesting. Because I believe that retirement benefits should keep pace with the actual cost of living, and it's like the same principle as my support for expanding Social Security.
Mm-hmm.
And workers who dedicate their careers to public service shouldn't see their pensions erode over time.
Jason, have you ever seen a post office pay chart?
I haven't. What does it look like?
So now it's back to one pay chart, but from 2013 up until last year, it was two separate charts. So even though Margot, Chris, and I do the same job, I was on the top chart, which was table one, and my two co-hosts were on table 2 because they started after 2013, after a horrible arbitration decision. So what happens with the charts is the starting pay is a lot lower. But one of the worst things about the chart is when a cost of living adjustment happens, I get 100%. Chris gets
72%.
You're up there. Margot gets about 68%. I saw this bill a couple weeks ago, and my eyes lit up. I said, "Oh, maybe they can actually do a bill where they change the COLA for everybody in the post office." So because our coworkers, the clerks, get 100% COLAs. So when this bill is introduced for active carriers, I'm going to call it HR table 1/2. Would you support that bill? Hopefully when that's introduced, and maybe you're in Congress and maybe you can even introduce it.
Definitely. And you can come and you can write it yourself.
Folks, you heard it here first, right here. We are now members of Congress today.
We won't have lobbyists write our legislation. We'll have union members write the legislation.
We're going to clip that. That's beautiful.
That's a great clip. I should have stayed silent there. That was a good clip. Yeah.
We'll edit you out. It's okay. Johnson was at this. All right. Wow. Yes. Thank you. Finally, we're ending we call them, so the nickname is Diet Colas because that's what we get. But that's the thing. So yes, ending the Diet Colas. We did a poll of 2000, like we helped with a bunch of other people. And the number one issue was ending the Diet Colas because the pay gap between like the clerks and everything, because since they're getting full colas, that gap, they make more than we do. And it's nothing. And look, they deserve every cent they get. We're not saying cut their pay. But back in the late 90s, there was an arbitration that said we work harder because we're out in the elements, we're in the heat, we're in the cold, we're getting robbed. We can get hit by there's always a car. I mean, every so often, I think there was a couple weeks ago in Mall Middleborough, there was an elevator that flipped over because it hit an ice bank and flipped over. Like, this job's dangerous. Clerks don't go through it. So we used to make a lot more, but because of the Diet Colas, that gap's gone. So if you could take on Diet Cola, I'm telling you, you've already won amongst that. That's it. So wink, wink, nudge, nudge. I'm not giving campaign advice, but if you want, there we go. All right, Margo, you got the next one.
So yeah, the incumbent that you were going up against has supported some of these bills, but was relatively slow to co-sponsor some of them. If you were elected, how would your approach to supporting labor legislation be different?
So it would be very different because I would actually acknowledge the existence of unions in this country and in the district. And like I said in the beginning, it's central to my platform that we be strengthening collective bargaining rights in this country for every union member. And part of the way we do that is by passing the PRO Act, which would strengthen collective bargaining rights and also make it harder to put up obstacles for creations of new unions.
I like it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like money. Big money is just ruin politics, right? There's no. How can anybody that works for the post office not see that and like support candidate? I don't want to go on a diatribe, but it's just,
Greg, I feel you, buddy.
Sorry.
I know. We all get it. We don't vote our own. A lot of people don't vote their own economic interests. It happens. So, all right. And Greg, you got the next. Speaking of public interests, Greg, segment. Yeah.
yeah. Do you believe that the post office should primarily be run as a public service for the American people, or as a business expected to turn a profit?
Well, it is a public service, and it should continue to run as a public service. And I think that's the reason why, the U.S. Post Office is one of the most respected institutions in America. We don't really have many public institutions anymore that people kind of trust and respect anymore. And the post office is on the top of that list. I think we should be thinking about, I don't know if you want to go into postal banking yet, but I think we should be thinking about expanding the public capacity of the post office in areas such as postal banking.
Yeah. And also I just want to point this little tidbit out. We are ranked second as the most favorable. The Park Service is number one by 1 percentage point. So if anyone from the Park Service is listening, we're coming for you, baby. All right, we're coming, and we're going to take you over. We may be second place now, but I'm telling you, our day is coming when everyone's going to think we're better. The workers in blue and light blue are going to beat the people in light brown. So there you go. And that is a challenge to the Park Service. So there you go. Sorry, just nothing against them, but we're going to be top dog here.
Well, just in terms of like the economic part, like the making a profit, and just getting some numbers here. So recently it came out that the OIG had a report from 2022 to 2024. The post office lost, and I hope you're sitting down, $866 million in grievance settlements. That's over 3 years. And to anybody who doesn't know what that means is, I said to my wife, who hears a lot about the post office, but, well, she even said, well, if they just follow the contract, isn't that number zero? And yeah, it's not that hard, right? They also lost another $52 million in retention rates. They hire people, they spend money on them, they quit. About 60% of them, I think, was the number, quit.
I think it's like 65 to 7. Yeah. Like it was, we hired 45,000 and only in 37 quit. Like
it's just they can't keep people, but they waste the money on hire them. And so you hear about all that waste. At the same time, the worker to management ratio has dropped from roughly 20-1 to about 7-1. So I used to basically have a supervisor that could run the unit by himself or herself, and now it's about 7 people. My boss has to answer to about 4 other bosses. they love nothing more than being on a telecon and just wasting time. And the point of this place is just to deliver packages, deliver mail, do it safely. What do those numbers tell you about how the post office is being managed?
Well, I think it goes back to how I first met you.
Good callback.
Regarding
Look at that circle back.
Save our post office from mismanagement. So, I mean, you guys know a lot more than me about these issues, and so, yeah, I mean, I think, like, again, we have to resist the forces of privatization, which are coming from not only the post office, but also, well liked and respected programs such as Medicare and Medicaid and Social Security.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And one thing too, I just want to bring up: do you think this mismanagement could be used to justify privatization, in your opinion?
I mean, that's a good point. I think there's this book by Naomi Klein called The Shock Doctrine, which is
I pretend I'm going to walk up to my bookshelf and show it to you that I own it. All right, because for our listeners, I'm saving us some time. I'd show you it, and I put it in my hand. Yes, I might have glanced over that a little bit. Yep.
Right. I don't think I've read it, but that's the thesis. I think is essentially that this kind of mismanagement and disorganization is a not a bug. It's a feature, and part of it is to lead to widespread privatization of our public goods.
Perfect.
Destroy something, and then sell it off for parts, essentially.
Right. I think there's that famous quote by the once respected Noam Chomsky that says, defund things, make things not work, get people angry, hand it over to private capital.
Yep.
Right. Yep. That's essentially it. So that's it. But Margo, I know you're next.
Yeah. So we are actually undergoing contract negotiations right now. And so we've got our union president who is going to be, I don't think he works directly with our new postmaster general, David Steiner. Is he still negotiating with Tolino?
I think he's going to be with Tolino, the head of labor guy. Yeah. But he works for Steiner, but
it's Jim. I think it's Lloyd now. I think Tolino got a promotion. It's Jim. I think it's
good
Jim
for him.
Lloyd. Yeah.
Okay.
He got a promotion.
I'm sure his $200,000 bonus is well deserved.
He certainly earned his promotion. We'll say that.
Yep.
But yeah, okay. So anyways, the Postal Service recently appointed this new Postmaster General. His name is David Steiner, and he previously served on the board of FedEx, which is quite obviously a competitor of ours. And many postal unions, including the NALC, the APWU, have raised concerns about that appointment. Oh, excuse me. So what role should Congress play in overseeing the leadership of the Postal Service?
Well, so I'm not well versed on how the leadership is installed, but I mean Congress serves a separate and equal role to the executive, and so these appointments such as Postmaster General in these top leadership positions, I think should at the very least have a consulting relationship with members of Congress. So I do think that in this area and most other areas, like Congress should have more of a say in these leadership positions.
Right, because how does it work right now? So is it the president appoints the person and then it gets nominates?
Yep.
Right.
So the president nominates a person, the person gets confirmed by the Senate then votes to confirm them to the Board of Governors. So I know the representative's not involved in that aspect yet, but I'm just saying, a lot of people, they go from representative to Senate. I'm just saying, maybe remember this. Maybe you look back on March 12th, 2026, and you're like, you know what? I knew someone said Senate right there, and let it know that the Next Generation Carrier podcast might have been that first podcast. I know you're just saying, remember where you came from. This is the day.
Right. And because I remember back like during the Biden administration, everyone was like, so why can't Biden just fire to joy? That was the big thing, was like, why
Right.
can't Biden just fire to joy? And it's like, no, well, there's a whole the whole postal board of governors, which I believe, are they appointed, nominated in this similar way? Because it
They're
was like,
appointed by the president, and then
right.
they go through the nomination. I may or may not have spoken to one of them recently on the phone that Biden nominated, and maybe a little big market tease there. And Biden nominated this person, and he was telling me how excited he was to go through his confirmation hearings in the Senate, and then the board of governors works 5 and 4, Jason. So it's if it's usually five. If Biden's president, it's 5 Democrats, 4 Republicans, and then I think they have, I forget what their terms are. It's a couple
7, so it's 7 years,
Yeah.
and the way they picked him in 70, it was like it's stacked, so it's all supposed to be like, year one person, year, like they're kind of stacked over, and they can serve an extra year. The idea was to make sure to try to keep this like, because back before 1970 and everything, it was like if you watched that shot by, it was just the most corrupt. Like you donated it, this guy gets on, your friend gets this guy, your son gets. It was just a really bad system. So this was supposed to kind of take the politics out of it, but that doesn't work. So that would be the whole thing. So Biden had a bunch of people he could have, and he didn't. He got some. I'll give credit when credit's due, but he got some people in there, which were good. Some, I think, had a union background, which was great. The pre-funding mandate, which was absolutely killing us every year, that got repealed. 6A delivery, which that I'll get to that later on. That was enshrined into. So there was some good things that did happen there, but the whole thing of just that it's staggered, so one party can't favor it in. But so Biden had 2 years to do it, didn't do it. So I'll just say that, and we can talk about that. That's a separate conversation. But
he'll do it when he runs again in 2028.
yeah, why not? My thing now, Jason, I don't know if you've heard of postal banking at all, but this is a topic that is a bit close to me, maybe to you as well. But one thing I just want to point out, because I think you could probably hit a home run. This was on your webpage, so I know you're big on this. But and I brought this up with our president, President Brian Renfro. He's the president of our entire union, and I was kind of surprised he didn't know how much money this could generate. But and these aren't my numbers. This is from Senator Kirsten Gillibrand. Mm-hmm. These are her numbers. She estimated, her office with other numbers, it could generate up to $9 billion in revenue for the post office and all the services I know you talk about. Because right now, in rural areas, also in the inner cities, there's no banks. They have payday loans, cash checking services, who are no better than loan sharks in many areas. How much they charge people, it's just a terrible, terrible system that enriches, and all those people, all those little loan sharks, then make political donations. I think John Oliver did a great piece on it, but if you want to look at it, these people are just going left, and they target people, broke working class people. Mm-hmm. So, dumb question, because I know the answer, but I'll ask it as a formality. Do you support postal banking?
I do, and for all the reasons you just mentioned. So there's about 6 million households that are unbanked, so they don't have access to credits or banking services, and that could be because there's no banks around them. They live in a rural area. About 19 million are underbanked, so they have, like you said, very high interest rates. And the USPS also already has 30,000 locations, which is the largest retail network in the country. And there's also a historical precedent for postal banking, because the USPS already did this. So the postal savings system operated between 1911 and 1967. And so, like you mentioned, Kirsten Gillibrand, so there's a Postal Banking Act in the Senate right now. I don't know what the House analog is, or if there is a House analog to it.
I don't know if there is. I know. I look for it too. Yeah, I know. I don't know if there is. I think it may not exist.
So that might be one of the first pieces of legislation that I introduce, because the House needs the House needs an analog to the Postal Banking Act, and so the Postal Banking Act, what it would provide would have postal banking for checking and savings accounts, small dollar loans, and bill payment services. And so this is good for Americans. It also creates more postal jobs, and it matters for the union because it's a new revenue stream. There's new services which would expand the workforce, and it's a natural extension of the public service mission of the letter carriers.
Awesome. Great. And for once, we could probably afford new uniforms. If anyone knows why we're looking ragged, our uniform allowance allows us to get like shoelaces and a hat. That's about it. It's pretty bad, but one miracle at a time. You get postal banking, folks. You're not going to worry about your uniform allowances. The sky's the limit on how many jackets you can get. Like one, and boots. That's it, folks. So there we go. That's it. All right. Anyway, Margo, you got the next one.
Yeah, so far during this podcast, we have talked a lot about postal issues, and while we may be your favorite constituents, we are not all of your constituents, and your platform also touches on broader issues affecting the rest of the working people within Massachusetts 4th district, but also the broader United States. Some of those things that show up on your platform are Medicare for all, strengthening collective bargaining, reform of housing policy, taxing billionaires, and ending laboratory testing on dogs, which, nice. And I think the one that I kind of wanted to focus in on today is Medicare for all. I think that this partially has to do a lot with unions because I'm an ex-political person. I worked for both Bernie Sanders campaigns. I've spoken about that before in previous podcasts, but one like kind of hiccup that we ran into when we were trying to get the unions to support Bernie, like people higher up in the union than I think any of us three are, people who work really hard on the closer to the top of the food chain, right? Like one thing that they really had an issue with was the Medicare for all, because they say like, oh my gosh, we worked so hard to negotiate this Medicare plan, and we think that it's the best, and we think that our union, the people within our union should have the best plan or whatever. But how would you square that? How would you, and I'm obviously in favor of Medicare for all, but like, how would you convince somebody who has the power to endorse your campaign, but they feel that way about Medicare for all?
Right. So I actually remember that line of argument in 2020. So in 2020, I was knocking doors for Bernie in Durham, North Carolina, and Medicare for all was the one thing that I always started with, and it's because people, they know Medicare. People who are on Medicare largely like it. It's not perfect. It doesn't have it doesn't cover services like vision or hearing. So it can be strengthened, but people are familiar with it and they like it. And I think that's why, Bernie Sanders in 2020 made the push for Medicare for all, is because it's relatable. And, to your point about the unions negotiating a health care plan, Medicare, there's nothing about Medicare for all that says that would eliminate other health insurance plans. So what it is, just basically dropping the age minimum from 65 to 0. There's nothing inherent in the Medicare for All Act, which is currently in Congress now, co-sponsored by Debbie Dingell and Rep. Jayapal. There's nothing in that prohibits private or employer-based health insurance. So, and it's true that these private programs might be eliminated just by virtue of the fact that they can't compete with a single payer system. And I would just say to that we still live in a capitalist society, and so if they can't compete with that's just like the market of that. Just market competition at work.
Fair. It's the free market for you. How's that sound?
Yeah.
Yep. I mean, and I think we were talking a little bit about this before you came on too, about Medicare for all. Why it's, some people go, well, why is this a union issue? And of course, they always frame it as like, like we have some union bureaucrats who make, six-figure income. They don't touch mail like we do. And they kind of forgot where they came from. That's a problem we have with our unions. I know you're a union member. I know you probably got some out-of-touch people who are like, say that to the media. And then someone frames as all of us are against it. We're not. Because here's the example. Say, for example, a union votes to go on strike. What's one of the first things the employer will do? They shut their healthcare off. That is something, that is leverage an employer has. And also, I think in Massachusetts a few years ago, the National Grid workers, the gas line workers, they didn't go on strike. The company went on strike. It's called a lockout. That's when they're like, you know what? You don't want to accept this union contract? We're shutting, we're going to hire scabs, and too bad. Vote, yeah, So what ended up happening, I remember the story. This guy had a 7-year-old daughter. Just two stories. And his daughter was going through, she had leukemia. She was going through chemo. They shut their healthcare off just to leverage it. That's the length that these CEOs will go to. You had other people who have cystic fibrosis that the medication keeps them alive. And that medication is $20,000. You're out of work. They shut so this is absolutely a union issue, because that is something that if that is taken away from the employer, that absolutely, I know your campaign talks about strengthening collective bargaining. That is what gives us more leverage. It doesn't matter. You can't take away my health care, because how many people, have a sick family member or need medicine, and they go, look, I'm on board. I saved up enough. We have a strike fund. I can do this. I can't afford $900 a month for my insurance while I'm on a partial strike fund. So that's my thing. That's why I think Medicare for all is 1000% a union issue. But and I know you're a big supporter of it, but really, thank you. That is something I think, very few people seem to be against, but yep. And also, I know we're not talking about it, but ending my dog Zephyr. Greg, what's your dog's name?
Jimmy.
Aww.
And you got yeah, okay.
He's bouncing around upstairs. I don't know what is going on. I hope you guys can't hear him. He's not too happy.
No, it's not
wife
coming
right
on the
now.
mic.
Yeah,
yep.
Yeah.
But and
he
my
won't come
wife
down to the studio.
My wife's a huge dog lover too. That's our kid. So it's not. It should be postal that everyone loves dogs. But thank you for doing the and good. My wife wanted me to point that out if she would. So as a dog owner and lover, thank you. And I never give treats to dogs on my route because that's against regulations. But hypothetically,
no, I never. Don't do that.
You can't do that. No, I've never done that yesterday to 6 dogs. Not
you
at all.
didn't do that when you were on the phone with me yesterday. Definitely didn't do that.
I didn't. Right? Remember when I didn't do that? Yeah, that was. Yeah, I don't remember that. That was perfect.
It was in Minecraft. That incident. But yes, it was in Minecraft.
Yes. Very. That's it. All right, very good. We've hear that, postal inspectors. We don't do that. All right. The next question I have for you too. Now this is Massachusetts based. This wouldn't, I'm asking you as a voter. This is your position because I know you talk about housing. Housing has become a huge issue for many postal workers here in Massachusetts. The big cities, Worcester, Boston. Even the burbs, everywhere else, Pitts. All these areas are facing issues with housing. And now I'll just say this at the so we have a thing called the Massachusetts National State Association, which is like the political wing of our union. It's got about a board on there. And a friend of the show, Derek Lamone from Branch 34, he made a motion to support the upcoming ballot initiative on rent control. Just to skip a kind of lengthier story, this would cap rent control at the top being 5% per year at most. And this would affect the corporate landlords. If you're a guy that's like put it up tiers on your garage and someone lives, that's not affecting you. You're not a part. This is not affecting you. These are for friend of the show, BlackRock Capital, who may be owning some things. This would negatively affect their interests. But do you support rent control as a worker issue?
Well, definitely the ballot measure you just described, I would support that. And then you mentioned private equity. So I think part of my platform is trying to get rid of private private equity's ability to buy up housing, because I think that's what's really driving up housing prices across the country, actually. And I guess there was just a bill in the Senate that was passed today that was Elizabeth Warren's bill. And I don't know that much about the specifics, but it does target private equity's ability to buy up housing stock. And so I'm interested in that. It still has to pass the House and get signed into law by the president, but I think that might be a good start to that. There's also this problem of algorithmic price fixing. So a lot of these rentals are fixed. The prices are fixed by algorithms that,
like Lone Star, I think it's called. Yeah, I know. My wife used to work. Yeah, that is my wife worked at rent. Yes. Oh my God. If anyone knows, I'm sorry. I'm sorry to interrupt. I'm passionate about this stuff, but yes, go on. Sorry.
Yeah. So one of it's called PageRank. And so it sets prices on a variety of factors. It could be, factors such as, the ethnic makeup of a zip code. And so I think we have to also ban this type of price fixing.
Awesome. Absolutely. Yes. All right. Margaret, you want to talk about that one? But you're the coworker.
Yeah. So we're about to switch things up. Huh?
Okay. I was wondering if you want to cover it, but yep. Okay.
Yeah. We're taking a massive turn from what we were talking about with the housing situation, but I think that one thing that's kind of dominated everybody's news feeds for the past 12 days or so, 12, something like that, is this conflict that's going on in Iran. And I think that, let me set things straight. Like, here at Next Generation Carriers, the only war that we're interested in fighting is a class war, right? We we are class warriors, and I think that I don't think, now I'm only however old I am, but like, I've never seen and never heard of like approval for a war being started. I feel like I've never seen it be so low, or like even heard people talk about like just approval for this military action being so low compared to all the rest of the wars that they've ever done. And so and I guess that a lot of it is probably being done without congressional approval, by the way that it sounds. So if you were in Congress and this type of things getting passed across your desk to war powers resolutions or whatever kind of thing that they do to approve these kinds of things in Congress, like how do you feel?
Yes.
How do you feel about the war?
Well, I have just a lot of thoughts, but to your point on the low approval rate among the public, so I saw a poll today. I don't know that what all of Americans were, but the figure I saw was 6% of Democrats support the war. So this is like virtually everyone in the Democratic Party base, which I'm running in the Democratic primaries, so that's why I'm focused on that, opposes this. And I think the gulf between the base and the leadership is so wide on this issue. And the leadership and the incumbent in this district is really focused on procedural issues. Oh, like the president can consult us. And now the incumbent in the district is focusing on strategy issues. Well, the president isn't doing regime change well enough. Like we have to, make sure that the leaders we want gets installed in the Iranian government and not what it is currently. So I would just say, as a blanket issue, we should not be at war on Iran right now. We should be investing that billions of dollars we've already spent within the span of a week or two. Billions of dollars could have been spent on healthcare for all Americans, could have been spent on building infrastructure in this country. It could have been spent on education, and instead of we're spending it, on missiles, is killing civilians. So I would just say that this campaign I'm running is fundamentally pro-peace and pro-democracy, and that's why we've been endorsed by Organize for Peace
Very nice.
for our pro-peace, pro-democracy positions. And I would just say that Americans are tired of endless wars, and this country, we also want to have our own foreign policy and not dragged into foreign wars by other countries. And so we want to invest money here in the district and not for weapons overseas.
Right. And I guess, the only reason why I asked this question and why it kind of came to my mind in the first place was because, and I don't want to use one of my coworkers' story as like for cheap political points, but one of my coworkers, in fact, she used to be my steward. She's now a steward at another station. Her nephew was one of the first 3 American soldiers that were killed in the war. And I believe that there was another person from Waukee, another person, like, there have been 2 people from Iowa alone. And Iowa is where I live, just for the record. But, like, there have been 2 people from Iowa alone that have been killed in this war. And I think it's really easy to forget when you're separated by a whole ocean that these issues really do matter. But that's something that really brought it home for me and, like, really made it real. That could have been any one of us. That could have been, my cousins, a member of my family,
Yeah.
Sorry to hear about their loss. It's also a reminder that, like, even though we're doing airstrikes at the time, it's still, like, very dangerous for American service members, and it's dangerous for Americans, and also the entire region is being destabilized right now. And so the mantra "no boots on the ground" is kind of worthless because it's still very dangerous for people in the region. And this type of war, aerial campaign can devolve into something a lot more serious that may and probably will require more American personnel in harm's way. And so I think that's the big threat.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and not to mention, I don't think anybody ever thought like a 8-year-old school child in Iran should be hit by a missed target or a Tomahawk missile. It's people forget about that, and I think some of the people in Congress right now is like they're just like, yeah, casualties of war. Like, oops, if you really think about it, it's just how would you think if like a missile just landed in your backyard? I don't think they think of like that, and I think some people in Congress and it tied back to the post office, I think they get complacent in their roles, and a lot of incumbents get complacent in their roles. And I think it does take a good challenge. I mean, I'm sure it's hard to unseat an incumbent, obviously. And I think your campaign is going about it the right way because you're hitting them from the other side. I think he was probably more to the who did he replaced?
Joe Kennedy.
Kennedy. Oh,
Right.
well, they're basically the same. So
Yeah,
never mind.
Yep.
I was looking at down because I was looking at a map, and you almost touch Marlboro. You're close. I don't really. I always call my Congresswoman Trahan. It's an inside joke I have in my own head. I call her the 435th most powerful Congressperson in the country. I just wish she would do a little more, speak out a little more. But can I just say before we, I think we're probably going to wind down soon. I just want people, like, after hearing Jason speak, I just want them to go to poulos.house. That's the POULOS.HOUSE, poulos.house. You don't take big money.
Nope.
You'll see $50 in your Act Blue account that just got sent to you from from all of us. I just want to say, people that are listening, and this is the 4th District centric, but Attleboro, Berkeley, Dighton, Fall River, Freetown, Mansfield, North Attleboro, Norton, Raynham, which is some of the 9th District, Rehoboth, Seekonk, Somerset, Swansea, Taunton, Newton, Sherburne, Bellingham, Brookline, Dover, Foxborough, Franklin, Medfield, Millis, Needham, Norfolk, Plainville, Sharon, part of Wellesley, Rentham, Lakeville, Blackstone, Hopedale, Mendon, Milford, and Millville. You are in the 4th District. I hope you listen to this and really consider your options when it comes. Don't sit this one out. You have a candidate that literally has postal banking on his website before we even got to know him. So that should tell you something when you go to vote. So I just wanted to give you a little plug there.
Awesome.
I appreciate it. Can I also add that we're trying to get on the Democratic primary ballot right now? If you live in the 4th Congressional District, help me get on the ballot by helping collect signatures. And so there's a volunteer link on the webpage, poulos.house/volunteer. Sign up to volunteer, help collect signatures. Thank you.
Awesome. And I got a question too. Speaking of the Democratic Party, Greg and I usually have a little disagreement on the Democratic Party, but this is my thing here. Now you're running as a Democrat, but many people feel that the Democratic Party is not always with postal workers. For example, Obama, I think in 2015, called for austerity cuts, cutting Saturday delivery, going to 5-day delivery, which would eliminate 40,000 jobs because that's one less all the T6s would lose. Then you have ending door-to-door delivery. So those are things that were not in the interest of the city letter carrier. And also I see your platform. It's good. It's very pro-worker. I like it. But I always see the same thing happening to people like you and people like Bernie is that you might win and then you're shut out of the conversation. And then you're treated like you're a lunatic because you think people should have health care and we shouldn't have wars. Do you think staying within the Democratic Party is the way to go, or maybe going independent? But why did you kind of settle on the Democratic Party versus what you have is I think is a very solid platform. That definitely is something the city letter carrier should look at.
Yeah, so I settled on the Democratic Party because that's the party that I first joined when I became a voter in 2004. And it's because I really admire the legacy of FDR and LBJ with the Great Society. I really respected these politicians who are pushing the big universal programs. And I think that's what we need in the country right now. And, I was disillusioned with the Democratic Party, especially after, Bernie Sanders lost in 2020. And what really brought me back was looking at, the victories of Zoran Mamdani in New York City. And then there was a Democratic Socialist who won in Seattle. And I think that really kind of reinvigorated my faith that the Democratic Party could once again be the party of workers. And I do think that there is a pushback against the tendency for the party to be controlled by the big corporate interests in this country. And I think there is a real desire for progressives who don't listen to the big money donors and don't accept corporate influence, and instead advocate for big universal programs and pro-worker policies. And so I do think that there's a trend in the right direction. And I think this election cycle 2026 is actually going to be a change election year, and it's going to be hard on incumbents. So I think the next generation of Democrats, I think, is going to be more left and more progressive than what is currently here.
All right, awesome. I didn't notice you said next generation. I like that. Well done. I don't know if that was intentional, but pretty cool. I bet you did. And I'm glad you have faith in it. That's good. I wish you the best of luck.
Jason, I still got faith too. They test me.
You and Greg can go bowling together. I'll be on the other lane.
I try to say, Chris, the devil you got to choose one. Until the Labor Party happens.
Hey,
I'm with Chris on this one, guys. I'm sorry, I'm with Chris.
I know, but hey, look, it's like I said, your platform's good. I hope they just, we need this. Whatever. If you go independent, which might be cooler, but as long as this platform gets on there and you're sitting up for the city letter carrier, you're 4 for 4 in all our legislation. That's big. As opposed to the other guy who's only 2 for 4. And boy, that took a long time to help us out, huh? Dude, you busy? Busy? Anyway. Also, the final question I have is this. Let's just say you have a magic wand and you could fix the post office. where in 50 years, where do you see the post office if you could get if everything get through? What's your hope for the postal service as a public service?
Well, I think it should be, expanded. The postal services should be expanded. And so, one thing that I focus on is the postal banking, and I think that's really the way to expand the mission of the postal service, and also to expand the workplace. And I think that we also have to strengthen the role of the National Association of Letter Carriers, in order to help preserve the role of the post office in this country.
Thank you. Finally, someone speaking sense. Yes, I know it may sound crazy, but maybe the people who work there might know how to fix it. So thank you for endorsing an idea that we might know more than the outside agency that was just hired by Postmaster Steiner. I'm sure at a very low rate. He just bought an outside consulting firm. It's paying them probably hundreds of thousands of dollars, asking them what needs to be fixed. Meanwhile, they could talk to us for free. If Postmaster Steiner, this is an appeal to you if you're listening right now.
Come on
our show. We have so many ways we could tell you to save money. Pay us $150,000. We'll do it for free. Whatever. Just that's it. So if Steiner, there's your challenge. Postmaster Steiner, come on our show. Jason, if you want to come back, we can all talk to him as a group. Maybe do an intervention, whatever it takes. But I think we know what to do. Maybe that's it. So thank you for that. Jason, I know you kind of wrapped it up. The campaign. Is there anything? So if people like this, how can they learn more? I know you got your website. Are you on the? Are you on the social medias as the kids are into? Is that? Are you on the TikTok? I don't know. I don't know what kids are into now. MySpace. Do you
I'm
have a
on
MySpace
TikTok.
page?
I'm on all the social medias.
You got a MySpace page? Because I still have mine.
I don't think that exists anymore.
Well, it's a little free advice. Man, when you get on the MySpace crowd, I'm just saying. Me and Tom are pretty tight, or a bot I'm talking to. He wanted to know my mother's maiden name and my third grade teacher. I don't know if that's legit, but anyway, all right. So maybe hurry up on that MySpace page, but that's great. And before we close the show, I just want to remind listeners about the 30 for 30 campaign. What it comes down to $30 an hour starting pay, and for all postal workers, and a 30-to-1 worker to management ratio. By the time this airs, our first meeting will probably be over, but we're going to have more. So please check out our Next Generation Carriers page on Instagram. Also not on MySpace. I'm kind of disappointed. I got to talk to John about that, getting us on the MySpace, but this is going to be big because for once we're going to work with rural carriers, clerks, mechanics, whoever it's going to be, because in our community allies, maybe some friendly politicians here who definitely want to come and get involved and help us. We don't, like I said, we don't care if you're a libertarian, independent, socialist, whatever. If you want to help the city letter carrier and save the postal service, please get involved with the campaign for 30 for 30. And also, if you're listening, and also this too, if you're listening and if you can get in touch with them, you're a politician, a member of Congress, or a candidate like Jason, please reach out to the show. We want to talk to them because we need everybody. Any politicians running for office, if they want to talk postal legislation, you're more than welcome to come and sit down and talk to us just about legislation, because this is stuff that affects all of us. As we said, politicians absolutely determine our conditions here at the Postal Service. So please reach out to us and do that. So thanks for listening to Next Generation Carriers. Stay safe out there, and we'll see you next time. Thank you very much. And to thank you, Jason.
Thank you.